Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Yep, this was the problem. This is what I've been saying forever. Democrats obviously have a problem, and their only savior, the only solution, the only person who could turn the ship around is Joe Biden. And that right there is the problem. They're relying on this guy to somehow turn the whole thing around. They tried it during the State of the Union address. It was a complete and utter disaster. But of course, Democrats are clinging so desperately on the idea that Joe Biden's just going to be magically cured from his dementia and somehow pull it together and pull the country together, but it's never going to happen. The guy's a walking, talking dud, a complete disaster. The president of the United States is a vegetable, and there's no going back from that. There's no fixing that. There's no magical remedy. And so it's just the reality of the situation that Democrats are stuck in. And I guess what I'm trying to say is what they're stuck with is what I'm about to show you guys. Highlights from the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I say highlights, but they're highlights for us. But on the flip side of the coin, they're mega lowlights if you're a blue anon Democrat shill. Joe Biden once again tanks his campaign by simply showing up and trying to be a likable character. He's very quickly becoming just as despised and unlikable as Hillary Clinton, as the 2024 election seems to be mirroring the 2016. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks. So let's first start off with checking in on old, kooky, sleepy, piss-pants Uncle Joe. Obviously age is an issue. It's a serious concern in this election. But Joe Biden keeps telling us he's doing push-ups and he's basically the same man he was 40 years ago. But I'm not so sure about that. Yep, reality is still reality. Joe Biden still looks like a struggling, confused old man. It seems almost as if he could barely lift up the fork and eat. I wouldn't be surprised if in his campaign cellar, he's being spoon-fed with a little baby spoon. So just the general look of it all. I think a lot of people are just watching this guy, his mannerisms, his energy, his low energy, and it still just fundamentally feels wrong that this guy is president. But speaking of fundamentally wrong, Joe Biden made, in my opinion, a very bad decision, or at least his writing staff made a horrible optics decision where they decided they were going to crack jokes about Donald Trump facing political persecution from his DOJ.
I had a great stretch since the State of the Union, but Donald has had a few tough days lately. You might call it stormy weather. What the hell?
Yeah, you could tell everybody in the room, except for the most partisan of Democrats, weren't exactly thrilled to laugh at this joke. And of course, you know exactly why. I'm sure in that kind of Washington swamp environment, the majority of people there want to see Donald Trump yanked out of the race, but they know the optics are bad. They know that the cases against Trump are illegitimate. They know that it's political persecution and election interference. And most importantly, they know that that's how it's perceived, and that every time Donald Trump ends up in court, not only does he raise $1 million in grassroots donations, but his poll numbers go up and he becomes more and more of a sympathetic figure. And so I think that most people that are sitting there probably realized in the moment that that joke was in horrible taste, in bad taste. It makes him look bad. And this is where Democrats, once again, stub their toe. They need this guy to be a likable figure. They need this guy to bring the country together, to restore trust in the system, faith in American democracy. But instead they get a wannabe petty tyrant who's laughing about attempting to jail his political opponent during his re-election bid. I mean, this guy seems more brash about trying to imprison his political opponents than what you'd expect from a Soviet leader. When the Russians do it, they don't gloat about it. They just do it and then pretend as if nothing happened, or claim it's the legal process, simply acting in a neutral manner to protect the people from corruption and overthrow of the government. They're more subtle about it. Joe Biden, however, goes to an elite Washington gala and cracks jokes about it. He looks absolutely horrible, and that joke was honestly terrible. Was it somewhat witty, a little bit clever? Sure, but from an optics perspective, I mean, it's just wrong, especially considering all of the documents that we've been covering. I'm not going to start reading through them all, but everything that Judge Aileen Cannon has been dropping, forcing Jack Smith to unredact all the government's documents, all of this stuff. I'll put a bunch of documents on screen and you can pause the video and read them if you want. These documents essentially prove that Jack Smith's team, the DOJ, was communicating thing with the Biden White House orchestrating all of these indictments, especially on the whole, documents case, considering we know that the indictments essentially come from his White House, or at least in the very least they were connected in the process. For him to be laughing about it is just horrible. Then of course it gets worse as Joe Biden regurgitates the debunked bloodbath hoax.
And he promised a bloodbath when he loses again. We have to take this seriously.
I'm assuming Joe Biden never got the memo, the correction, or he probably doesn't remember the memo, and so he's just grabbing this whole bloodbath thing off the top of his head. Kind of astounding that he has the ability to do that, considering how shot this guy is. But anyways, he promotes the bloodbath hoax, even though everybody knows that Donald Trump was talking about the auto industry.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories.
And this, by the way, comes right after Joe Biden recently attacked Donald Trump using the good people on both sides hoax.
But what happened was, remember when down in Virginia, those folks came out of the woods carrying torches and with Nazi banners and singing, for real. It's hard to make it up. And it just was astounding to me. And a young woman was killed. I spoke to her mom, who was a bystander. And they asked the then President Trump what he thought, and he said, I think there are very fine people on both sides. That's when I decided I had to run, for real. Because our democracy is also at stake. Literally, the democracy is at stake.
Another totally debunked, horrible propaganda hoax pushed by the Democrats, where they claimed that Donald Trump called neo-Nazis good people, even though he said this.
So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Again, just a lying old man. He's a liar. He's corrupt. I think most people know that. He's laughing about imprisoning his political opponents, and all the while, it looks like he's barely clinging on to life, to be completely honest with you. Just seeing him look dazed and confused and barely able to eat food by himself, the whole thing is just concerning, a little bit pathetic. He tries to downplay and dissuade voters from being concerned of his vegetable status with jokes like these.
Some of you complain that I don't take enough of your questions. No comment. Of course, the New York Times issued a statement blasting me for, quote, active and effectively avoiding independent journalists. Hey, if that's what it takes to get the New York Times to say I'm active and effective, I'm for it.
Which is true, by the way. The press was blasting him last week on the issue of him avoiding interactions and interviews. Not to mention, we're not even sure if this guy's going to join the debates. But don't worry, he cracks a little joke, and I guess all is well. I think that's what they're hoping for. I think that's what they're expecting. But I think for most Americans, it's probably more serious than that. I don't think most people are willing to just laugh it off after Joe Biden dismisses the issue with a rehearsed joke. It's deeper than that. And once again, all the most major concerns with this guy flare up during another failed public event. This is why they don't want Joe Biden on the campaign trail. They don't have enough drugs to get this guy through an effective campaign season. And so here's what you get. Joe Biden, in my view, tanking his own campaign as he shows the world he's a corrupt, incompetent, dementia-riddled, petty tyrant. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. That's my view. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.